already many guests popping in.
Yeah.
We're going to give it just a couple moments to get this presentation kicked off. You know, a lot of people just logging in after work, and we have a lot of people just getting onto Zoom. So we want to give it a couple minutes. Just please know that this presentation is already being recorded, and we hope to continue that through this presentation because we want to share it with folks that could not attend today. But also, if you want to see it again, it's going to be emailed out tomorrow, and it's also going to be available on the St. Hubert's YouTube channel. So we'll give it just another 30 seconds or so, and then I will get it kicked off and introduce our speaker for the day. So great to see so many names popping in. So as we get this jam-packed hour kicked off, good evening, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Bobby Mann. I'm the Chief Programs Officer for St. Hubert's Animal Welfare Center, and I'm so honored and excited to be kicking off this community conversation. You are all here as stakeholders and people invested into the work that we are doing at St. Hubert's, and there's nothing more important than not only sharing our highlights with you, but answering the questions that you have that talks about the future of our vision and goals. So to get this kicked off, I'm going to be introducing our President and CEO, Lisa LaFontaine. But before we get to that, I want to give a quick reminder to folks that we are going to have time at the end of this presentation for questions and answers. As we mentioned, we want to be able to hear from you and what's on your mind. So if this is your first time being on a Zoom call, I actually want to introduce you to the feature that you're going to use to do that. So if you take your mouse and you hover toward the bottom of your screen, you're going to see a button that says Q&A. If you click that button, it's going to open up a box, and this is where we're going to prompt you to enter your question. So if you enter them here, if you have something right now at top of mind, if you have something that comes to you during the presentation, and we're also going to hold time at the end of the presentation, this is where we want your questions to go. We will then answer those questions in real time, or if our amazing team who are also on this call can answer it through the chat function on there, we will do that. So again, to get this kicked off, I'm going to toss it over to our President and CEO, Lisa LaFontaine.
Thanks, Bobby. And thank you all. It's so nice to see so many people joining us on a Thursday night at this time. I want to give a blanket apology that maybe I don't have to give with this group, but I have adopted 2 dogs in the last 6 weeks or so, and they're still kind of acclimating in my life, and they tend to make themselves known during my Zoom presentations. So you may hear their voices, and I'll just drop all self-consciousness and celebrate it when they speak up. So let me tell you a little bit about what the structure of tonight is going to be. So first of all, I would like to share with you some of our key results from 2022. And given that you are a stakeholder of the organization, you have probably received or will shortly receive our annual impact report. And so this is a way of bringing our impact report to life. I'll talk a little bit about 2023 at St. Hubert's, or 2022 at St. Hubert's. I'll talk about the field of animal welfare and some of the trends that we're seeing, some of the concerns and challenges we have, what we're doing as an organization and as a movement to address those. And then at that point, I'm going to pause and take a look at 2023 because we've just worked on a 5-year strategic plan, and we're deep in the middle of getting our initiatives launched for the next year. And then finally, I'm going to close by talking about the long-term vision for St. Hubert's, and then we'll have ample time for Q&A. So that's sort of the general format. Maybe we'll riff a little bit as we go forward. And Maestro is just playing with a toy, so you have already heard from him. So, despite the fact that we're still coming out of some tough years, the pandemic, we really had an amazing impact last year. And for any of you that know the team here, you know that these are amazing, dedicated, compassionate, and creative people who always want to do the best for animals in the community. And so I'm really proud of the results that we've achieved together. And as the folks that sustain us and fund our work, I hope that you can feel a sense of pride and accomplishment together with us as you look at some of these impact numbers. So first of all, we saved the lives of 95% of the animals who came through our doors. And given that they come in sick or injured, or from another shelter that maybe didn't have a medical team in place, that's a pretty phenomenal achievement of our team. And the most vulnerable of those animals are the kittens who come into St. Hubert's NICU. And the NICU is exactly what it sounds like. It's a neonatal intensive care unit just for kittens. And some of them come in hours old, some of them come in literally hanging on by a thread to life. And if you look at our NICU, we have incubators and we have syringe feeding and bottle feeding and loving staff and loving volunteers who are cuddling those animals and bottle feeding them and giving them the second chance they deserve. And so we cared for 232 kittens this year during the NICU, and we were able to save 99% of them, which is phenomenal when you consider how they came in. And speaking of our volunteers, I know many of you on the call are volunteers. I actually started in animal welfare as a volunteer, so I deeply, deeply appreciate what you do. Our volunteers gifted over 14,000 hours of their time to us. And it's all hours of the day, the weekends, evenings, some of the hardest work that we do, volunteers are right there beside us. And we're so grateful for that. We couldn't do it without our volunteers. And some of those special volunteers actually, and not counted in those hours, are foster families. And our foster families take in some of the most vulnerable animals, those who are not doing well in shelter life, those who might need more around the clock attention and care. And so over 1,000 animals, 1,024 animals spent time in foster families last year. And that's really important for really three reasons. One is that because those animals were not taking up kennel space at St. Hubert's, we were able to take in other animals who couldn't go into foster homes. The second thing is that despite the beautiful facility we have, the skilled staff, all the time and attention of volunteers, it's still institutional life, and that's not the same as a home. And so for these animals to get to sleep in a bed, sit on a couch, be in a home, it's really better for their emotional and physical well-being. And I think that perhaps the most important benefit of our foster program is that people in our community in New Jersey are literally taking our mission into the heart of their home. And I can't think of a better way to create ambassadors, to partner with members of our community than for you to actually live and breathe and have our mission close to you like that. So nearly 3,000 animals were adopted into new homes or were reunited with their families after getting lost. Our medical team performed nearly 3,000 surgeries last year. And that's not just spay neuter, that's dental cleaning, specialty surgeries. And many of these animals wouldn't have had access to vet care without our support. And then finally, I know many of you have probably taken a training and behavior class at St. Hubert's. Our trainers who teach classes, many of them are on staff at St. Hubert's and do behavior and enrichment sessions with the shelter dogs. And so last year, they completed 2,359 enrichment sessions to help the dogs in our care become more adoptable, more prepared to successfully transition into an adoptive home. So that's just a highlight of some of the things that happen within our walls. And then outside our walls, the story extends. And last year, 2,342 animals moved through our way station, which is our transport program, one of the best in class in the country, that moves animals from source shelters where they might not have resources, they might have overpopulation, they might not have programs and services because they're drinking out of a fire hose every day. And so we were able to move 2,342 animals from, as we say, crisis to care, because at the other end of the transport are communities, including the Madison Morristown community, who were prepared, willing, and wishing to adopt those animals into their homes. And we work with 80 way station partners right now, although that number is growing. I think one of the most important programs we have is our pet boarding program for families who are having a housing crisis of one kind or another. Maybe they're being evicted, or they're losing their homes because of an economic challenge, or maybe they're a victim of domestic violence and they need to get out quickly. And so this special boarding program allows them to have the peace of mind that their animal is going to be safely with St. Hubert's while they find a safe home and move their family and get their lives set up to be able to then welcome that animal back into their new home. When I'm at St. Hubert's and I'm out shopping in the evening, I will meet people who will tell me that their mother or their grandparent went through one of St. Hubert's humane education programs. And so this is a generational impact program. And last year we had over 1,900 young people coming through our humane education programs. And then finally, I'll talk a little bit more about this later. We gave out 206,473 pet meals to families who are struggling to keep their pets. So just to go a little bit deeper into some of the numbers there, our outreach team serves as the first point of contact for pet owners who are scared and desperate and concerned that they might have to relinquish their animal because they can't afford to care for them, or they can't give them the food, supplies, medical care that they need. And so our outreach team, they're compassionate. They work so hard. They're so dedicated and responsive, and they create a safe place for people to call and get that help. And last year, we were able to provide medical assistance beyond just spay neuter to 346 pets who wouldn't have otherwise been able to get that medical care. And in addition, we give out food and supplies and all the things people need. And these are really vital services because much like with the foster program, our pet support team, if they can keep an animal in the loving arms of their family, then that keeps shelter space open for animals whose people literally can't keep them or don't want them anymore. These owners want to keep their pet. They're desperate to keep their pet. And so I think one of the most beautiful things about this is that these are families who are going through trauma of one kind or another. And through our work, we're able to help mitigate some of the trauma they're experiencing, and we're able to keep their family member in place with them so that that's one less worry on their minds. I think most of you probably know and have contact with our way station transport program, which has been going on since we've been doing the way station since 2016. And as I mentioned, it moves animals from shelters who might not have options for those animals, who may have overcrowding or may not have the proper funding. And so we're there to take some of the animals out of those shelters so that they don't have to worry about those animals anymore, and they can focus on the others who are there in their facilities. And beyond the movement of animals, I think this is one of the things that our team is most proud of. We don't just move animals. We really try to lift our partners up. We work with them to find out, what do you need the most? What would get you from the place of crisis and desperation to the point where you could actually help the shelters and the communities around you? Because that is a realistic vision. And when we come up with solutions with them. If there's training needed, either our professionals provide training or we get resources to help provide that training. We share programs, we share supplies, and we also share a portion of the adoption donation for the animal that left their shelter and was adopted by one of our destination partners. And so that money is then reinvested in the sending communities for them to make themselves stronger. And that's really our philosophy, that transport should save lives, but it also should make the organization stronger. And this year we welcomed our 20,000th animal from a shelter in Louisiana. And this is Sweetie Johnson. She is in the loving arms of Andrew Heyer, who is one of the managers for our waste station program. And I can tell you that Andrew is there for every animal when they arrive. He opens the cage, he personally takes them out, he gives them some comforting words or a hug and sets them gently on the ground. And so here he is with Sweetie, our 20,000th waste station animal. And she is now in a loving family. I think she wondered what all the hoopla was about when she got off the van, but she adjusted pretty quickly, and she's thriving with her people. And then, as I mentioned, we're trying and intending to put even more resources into our communities to be able to keep even more animals with their families than we did last year. And so we held animal health clinics throughout northern New Jersey in cities and townships. We saw nearly 700 animals at those clinics. We gave out 340 rabies vaccines, which again, they would not have otherwise received if we hadn't been there. And as you can see, we gave thousands of supplies out. And I told you about the pet meals. Well, that was 173,500 pounds of food that we gave out to New Jersey families. And we're very lucky that we work with some wonderful animal welfare partners who literally deliver truckloads and pallets of food so that we can be there for our communities. So I mentioned we helped thousands of animals last year, but I just want to highlight a few of them. And I'll just highlight the kittens on this slide. These stories are in your annual report, which again, if you don't have it, it'll be at your mailbox any day now. Queen Prada came in with 2 kittens and they had ringworm. And if anyone has dealt with ringworm before, you know that while it's not a serious disease, it takes quite a bit of labor and attention to treat ringworm. And so Queen Prada and her babies were very lucky that we had a foster home that was willing to take them in and give them the baths and the treatment and the extra care that they needed. And here's one of the kittens who is on her way home. And, you know, in many organizations, ringworm is actually not treated because it can spread so quickly. And so we're incredibly lucky that we have foster families who are willing to take this on. Mango is another cat that had a lot of special contact. She was found as a itty bitty baby in a storm drain and had a number of injuries, had a really bad case of URI. And she was on the edge in our kitten NICU for 5 weeks. And here she is as she's come along and gotten a little better and stronger. And she has also been adopted into a loving home. So all of these were animals that came into our shelter who we gave above and beyond care to. And then here are a couple of animals that we're able to keep with their families who otherwise would have come into the shelter. Raiden, who is on the right, he started having really dramatic symptoms. He wasn't eating, he wasn't defecating, he was in extreme distress, his abdomen was swollen, and it was found that he had a blockage, which is often fatal. And any kind of GI surgery is really tricky and can go south very quickly, but it's also very expensive, running from $5,000 to $7,000 and more. And Raiden's family didn't have that kind of money, and they didn't know what to do. And so they called us for a second opinion. And through our medical partnership program, we were able to take that burden off of them and get Raiden the treatment he needed so that he could get the best quality care and then go back into the arms of his loving family, his parents and their 2 kids. And so Raiden is home now. He's made a full recovery, and we continue to get updates from his grateful family. So to all of you who give money to us to support these pets, know how much your contributions mean to families like Raiden's. So I want to transition now So that's some of what was happening at St. Hubert's last year. But we are seeing some trends in the animal welfare movement that really concerned us, that these are challenges that we're going to have to figure out how to overcome in the years ahead in order to keep saving more lives and keep more animals in their homes. And we are part of a group called Shelter Animals Count, where we share all of our data with a consortium of animal welfare organizations across the country. And we have been attending webinars throughout the year to look at those data trends. And Shelter Animals Count released their 2022 annual report a couple of weeks ago. And the data that they provided in this annual report goes as far back as 2019, before the pandemic. But in particular, it does a deep dive into what was happening nationwide in 2022. And so the data set only counts complete data. And so there are 1,030 organizations whose data was counted and analyzed. And this represents 1.6 million animals who were counted. And some of the trends that we're seeing is that there have been shifts in intake. Intake has gone up, length of stay has gone up, adoptions have either flattened or gone down. This is not necessarily true for cats, particularly in the mid-Atlantic. We are not seeing as many cats coming into our shelters, but we're seeing a lot of dogs, especially larger dogs. And while St. Hubert's has had great success in saving their lives, things are challenging for us. Every day is challenging for us. And our partners who don't have the support and resources that we have are having an even harder time. And I wanted to get into this story a little bit because it is important in defining what our priorities are going to be, what some of our new programs and services are going to be, and how we're going to focus in the coming years. And so I mentioned that intake is up. And as a matter of fact, in 2022, across the nation, 4% more animals entered shelters than left. So that means 4% more came in than went out. And that is a recipe for stress. The data on adoptions varies a little bit from region to region, but in general, adoptions have decreased in some areas more dramatically, in some areas slightly. But this is a concern because we rely on adopters to take animals into their homes, to give them a second chance, to spread the word about how great it is to adopt a rescue animal, to come back to us for future adoptions, and most importantly, to keep really the flow of animals moving from the day they come in to the day they leave. And so when adoptions flatten, that creates longer length of stay. And we're seeing that certainly at St. Hubert's. And that's a bad thing because even as I mentioned, our shelter is very nice. It's a beautiful, beautiful shelter, but it's still an institution and it's still an unnatural environment for an animal who was used to living in a home. And so what you see with longer lengths of stay are increased stress, which then leads to susceptibility to infection, erosion of behaviors, stressors on an animal's mental health, and potential spread of disease from animal to animal. So we focus on our length of stay very closely because it is critical to keep that length of stay as brief as possible so that animals are coming in and moving into the best new homes as quickly as they can. Now, an interesting thing about intake is that relinquishments of owners is relatively unchanged as a percentage of intake. So more stray animals are coming into shelters, and we're not exactly sure why that is. It's something we're trying to understand as we're trying to understand all of these numbers. I think the thing that perhaps is deeply significant, maybe most significant for St. Hubert's, is that shelter transports across the country have dropped. And as you know, our way station has been operating since 2016. And at the height of our way station, we're taking in a transport of animals in a plane or a large vehicle every week, sometimes multiple times a week. And St. Hubert's continued to do transports during the pandemic. We were one of the few organizations that did. But our challenge is that while our sending partners have more animals in need than ever before, and in many ways they're more desperate, our northern partners who would normally take these animals in are feeling all of these stresses that I just told you about. So they're not as able to take in animals as they had been in 2020 and 2019. And so that has affected us, but it is truly a death sentence for animals on the other end at the sending shelters if there is no outlet to transport the animals. And so our team, our way station team, our data team, we are looking at this really closely so that we can get the capacity expanded to do more and more transports than we did in 2022 or 2021. So you'll hear a lot about this in the coming months. I wanted to just show you where we stand in this context. And this data represents the totality of our organization. So St. Hubert's, as well as the Humane Rescue Alliance in DC. And I wanted to put all the data together here because this shows a mid-Atlantic trend that I think is significant. And part of the reason that we did the merger between our organizations is to be able to collect more regional data and to have regional solutions. And so as you can see, we did slightly better than some of those annual report numbers from shelters nationwide. Our intake, as you can see, is down dramatically from 2019, and it's down even a little bit from 2021. But the thing that I want to mention is that, as I said, we had nearly 400 animals who we gave medical care to. We have done a lot of kind of triage family protection, where we could solve a problem over the phone or in person with a family to help keep their animals. And so we did more of that than ever before in 2022. We also returned more lost animals to their owners. And you can see that in the bottom row. So if you look in 2021, organization-wide, we were able to send 1,300 lost animals back home to their families. But that number jumped dramatically in 2022 by nearly 400 precious animals to 1,763. And so if you think about all of those intakes that we prevented by giving services and medical care and supplies, and all of the additional lost animals that we sent home, you can see if that hadn't happened, our intake numbers would not look so good. And so the pressure is really on us to continue focusing on intake prevention and lost pet reunification. Our adoptions were up a little bit, which is good. Our owner surrender is up just a little bit, not a lot. And as you can see, our way station transport numbers really tell the story of the industry. We transferred out 700 fewer animals last year, and we transferred in about exactly that much less than the year before. So if we expand and build on the good work that we've been doing, and if we can get our transport program up and running at the capacity we believe we can do, then I think the numbers next year when we meet are going to look a lot better. So I want to focus a little bit on 2023 in our vision. And, you know, one thing I like to tell people is, despite the fact that our work is challenging, despite the fact that we can't quite control who's coming in, why they're coming in, what happens on a daily basis, or anytime we open the door, I'm an optimist. I believe that good people who are working together, who are united around a mission, can make progress and can find solutions. And I am 150% confident that we have the right team here at St. Hubert's, at HRA as a whole, and with all of our donors and supporters and volunteers and fosters, who are some of the most caring and dedicated people who I've ever had the privilege to work with. And so I'm optimistic about the future, even though we have some clear challenges in front of us. And I think one of the things I'm most encouraged by is that people don't want to give up their pets when they call us. That's not how it was 10 or 15 years ago. I mean, I've been on the phone taking an animal in because it didn't match the furniture that people had just gotten, or they got another animal that they liked better and wanted to get this one up. That we're not seeing that happening anymore. What we're seeing is people who are at the end of their rope, who don't know what to do, who don't know where their next meal is going to come from, or maybe what roof is going to be over their head. And they're doing everything they can to keep their animals. And as a matter of fact, there have been a lot of great surveys done in the last 18 months that tell us that over 90% of people who have an animal consider them to be a family member. So think about what that means. A family member is someone you don't ever want to part with, who you put their needs in front of your own, who you want to make sure is well cared for. And so I think that's a really encouraging and fertile ground for us to begin to work in with pet owners who want to keep their pets, who want to work with us, who are open, who are willing to do whatever it takes to keep their family member. And so our challenge is to make sure that happens much more frequently, to make sure that everybody who wants a pet has the opportunity to get one, and everybody who has a pet has the opportunity to keep them. And that is going to mean that we have to immerse ourselves more deeply in our communities. And particularly, we have to partner with human service organizations who are dealing with some of the human family related challenges. Because one thing I know is that animals don't get into distress on their own. Usually, if there's an animal challenge in the home, there is a people challenge, there's a family challenge as well. So if we can network with human service providers to provide integrated services and solutions, then we're not only going to solve the problem in front of us, but ultimately we're going to build stronger communities and stronger community safety nets. And so that for us will mean a shift in where we put our resources. And in the past, the majority of our resources have gone into the care of the animals who come through our doors. That's the heart of our mission. We will always be there for that work. But we also want to invest equally in capacity building. And to us, capacity building means making sure that every day our staff is getting stronger and better trained and more capable, that we're bringing in more volunteers and fosters to support us so that we are a stronger organization who actually has community kennels available to us. And it means working with partners in our communities to make the community safety net stronger. And it means investing more in our shelter partners to make sure that they're stronger, and then they can do for other organizations what we did for them for a period of time. And then finally, we have to extend and expand our preventative services, because the secret to all of the things that I've talked about, all of the challenges, is to keep more animals in the homes where their people love them. And if we can do that, we will succeed. But we have to do it more, and we have to do it more creatively, and we have to do it quicker. And so here are just some of the key strategies and priorities that our team has for 2023, where we absolutely know we're going to help more animals, we're going to support more families, and these programs and services will help us to do that. And so I talked a little bit about our pet support being there for people at a time of desperation. We're developing a call center so that people can get the easier solutions immediately, sometimes virtually through our website and other virtual platforms, to solve the problems they might have. And if the problems are too complex to solve through a call center, then they'll go to our pet support team or our our behavior and medical specialists to help them. So this is a way to help more people and to take some of the call burden off our professionals so that they can help the folks more intensely who need it. And then we're going to be launching a lost animals texting program so that people in the communities are in touch with each other, neighborhood to neighborhood, to help let a larger social group, an immediate around them social group, know if their animal has gotten lost, to notify people if a lost animal is seen out on the street or has been taken in by a neighbor or family member. And so what this means is that more animals will be reunited, but most importantly, they'll be reunited quickly, because we're more successful if we can have an impact in the first 24 to 48 hours after an animal gets lost. The longer that an animal is lost, the more their behaviors change, the more fearful they get, and the harder they are to capture. So this is vitally important. Our team is also going to be coming up with some new adoption approaches to meet adopters where they want to meet us, to do some of it virtually, to do some of it at offsite events. And this is very important because one of the reasons that we believe adoption numbers are down is that it seems that a new form of dog acquisition has cropped up in the later days and after the pandemic. And just to tell the story, this summer, I was at a dog supply and demand summit for a half dozen or so of the largest animal welfare organizations, the CEOs of all the national animal welfare groups, of the Petco and PetSmart Foundation were there. The CEO of Petland, which owns the most pet stores in the country, was there. Representatives from the AKC, purebred breeders were there. Representatives from the American Veterinary Medical Association. And we shared all of our data for what we're seeing around intake, outflow, adoption, engagement. And it told a pretty frightening story, because we also saw data about dog acquisition, and we saw that dog acquisition was going up over the last few years. And that's best measured through new veterinary patients. However, we're also seeing that for-profit pet stores, for Petco and PetSmart, who work with us to adopt shelter animals and homeless animals, for the AKC, and for humane societies like ours, adoption is dramatically down. And so what we believe is happening, and we have to kick the tires to understand this more, is that a commoditized, profit-based dog sale series of entities has cropped up to take advantage of the fact that more people were adopting pets during the pandemic. So we believe that these folks saw that adopting and acquiring dogs was important to people, that it was happening more, and they decided to jump on that bandwagon for money. And anytime you mix the acquisition of new pets with money, you're probably not going to get a good outcome. And so I would say that it's fair to describe this as a commoditization of animals, which is deeply unsettling. We have questions about what kind of medical care do those animals have? How are they vetted? What is the transport like? Is it safe? What kind of matchmaking is done to make sure that the new adoption succeeds? And then most importantly, are there any wraparound services provided to support pet owners in those vulnerable few days afterward? I mean, I've been doing this for many years. I have some of the best medical and behavior people on speed dial. But, I've just adopted 2 dogs, and it's a transition, and it takes some time to make that work. And you need support. You need a village around you. And so what we are sickened by the thought that people could be taking economic advantage of people that want to get a dog. And we're also really sickened to think that those animals might not be handled or treated well during the course of that acquisition. And so the other thing I know is it's highly unlikely that there are any supportive programs going on. And so if we don't do something to stop this, then we can expect to see those animals in our shelters in a couple of years when those families fall apart because the adoption wasn't successful and no support was offered. And so we have a tiger team who is taking a look at this, who is trying to figure out who is our competition, how are they behaving, and then what do we need to do to compete in the face of that. And I'll tell you the things we'll never sacrifice. We will always put the animals' welfare first. We will always put client outreach, relationship building with new adopters, and matchmaking first. And we will always put the lifelong relationship we develop after an adoption over the transactional approach that these entities are taking. And so as we understand this environment more, we're going to come up with new adoption approaches in order to essentially recapture that market share that we've lost. The other thing that you can expect to see more of is a growth of our foster program. And if you're interested in being a foster, please reach out to us because we would be delighted to take you on. I personally foster animals, and it's one of the most wonderful, special things that I've done because I know I've saved those animals' lives. But I also have a couple hundred new friends who I wouldn't have had if they hadn't adopted my foster animals. So it builds human community as well as saving animals. And so the question we're asking ourselves is which animals actually need to be in a shelter? Which ones need to be at the St. Hubert's facility? And if they don't need to be there for medical treatment or behavior treatment, they can be in a foster home. And so that's the question, is how many animals could we put into foster homes and how many foster families can we properly support? And properly is the key word there because it does take a lot to, and in some ways it's harder to support a family outside of the organization taking care of a shelter animal than it is to just take care of that shelter animal. But we know it's better for the community and for the animals. And so we invest in it, but we want to be able to do just as good a job supporting our foster families as we do now. So scaling it in a way that is sustainable and doesn't sacrifice service and support is our priority. And then I'm really, really excited about these capacity building programs because this is really about sewing up all the holes in the safety net for animals, not only in our communities in New Jersey, but throughout the state and nationwide. And so one of the first things we're doing, thanks to a grant from one of our funders, is we're launching a statewide access to care research project. So we can look at where are families struggling, where are they most vulnerable, where are animals falling between the cracks, where are animals losing their lives or their health. And doing this statewide access to care project will help us generate solutions and programs and identify resources, ask for support for pets throughout the state of New Jersey. And I think one of the most wonderful things about this is oftentimes data is used to drive organizations apart or to embattle organizations. And what we want to do is use data to come up with solutions together to build a stronger safety net to save more lives. I mentioned that our way station really focuses on making our sending partners stronger. We have a huge investment in that this year to make sure not only are we moving more animals out of shelters where they may face euthanasia or certainly a long length of stay into adoptive homes, but we're doing more to invest in those sending partners. And we're going to continue working with all of the organizations we've worked with a couple of different twists. One is better data analysis to look at how close are our sending partners to being sustainable on their own so they don't need us anymore. And that's a formula that we'll come up with those sending partners. We're not going to step away until they don't need us anymore, but we have a much better projection of how long they're going to need us and what they're going to need in the way of support and services. And then we're going to be investing in a hub and spokes model. And so we've identified our first hub partner. And the whole notion behind a hub and spokes model is that we find a strong shelter with resources in a region that is deeply stressed. where we can partner with that hub organization to take animals to share knowledge and expertise so that they can penetrate more deeply into the rural communities around them where animals have not had a chance. None of those animals have been on transports. So we're trying to get out deeper into the rural areas and the really stressed communities that haven't even had transport as an option. And then finally, we will be transitioning one of our facilities to provide more medical services. And we're going to do this in a model that not only increases the animals and provides medical care to the animals in our transport program, but also provides medical services and relief to our shelter partners in the state of New Jersey. So that was a lot. And there's actually a lot more going on, but I just want to give you sort of the top priorities for 2023. And then I want to ground this in our vision, and I'll go through this really quickly because I've talked about most of it, but we really believe that pet companionship should never get to the point where it's a privilege for a few. We want to be able to support the most amount of people to have animals in their lives and to care for them. And again, I've talked about all these other things, but focus on keeping animals with their people in the loving arms of the families who love them. And so we're looking at a networked approach. And, you know, traditionally, organizations like ours have had a facility that we welcome people to, that many people visit, but that we expect people to come to us to get service. And that's a flawed model for a few reasons. One is we're many miles away from some of the people that need us the most. And some of those folks don't have transportation. So even if we were close, transportation would be a barrier. The other real challenge is that we know that every day there are animals who don't come to St. Hubert's because something worked in the community, in the neighborhood where they're living, where a village came together to keep animals in the home. And we don't know what those successes are right now if we are to place-based focus on our own facilities. So the more that we can get out in the community, the more of our team that we can have out in the community, the more we'll be able to see some of those success stories that the community has generated that we can then scale and bridge to other neighborhoods. And so this really is a circle of different strategies that are all networked and interwoven together. And some of this is 5-year work, but we're starting on it now to lay the groundwork. And I think one of the most wonderful things we could do is to start to open up a co-located healthcare clinic or series of clinics where the entire family can get vaccines and basic treatment. So if you can imagine, it would be a vaccine clinic for people and their pets, where the whole family can come in and the people go to one side, the animals go to other side. And we're really making a statement that the whole family deserves healthcare. We're also going to look at how can we have neighborhood franchises and help centers of St. Hubert's in different communities? And how do we do more of the outreach events that we have already done? Providing access to medical care is a huge challenge right now. And so one of the things we're looking at is how can we have more mobile medical services? And that may mean at some point hiring a vet team and acquiring a mobile medical unit that can actually go out and do surgeries and exams in the community. I mentioned transportation as a barrier. So we're looking at, can we develop a core of volunteers who can give people rides to the services they need? Can we partner with Uber and Lyft and other rideshare organizations to make this happen? I talked about the call center. I talked about the virtual St. Hubert's. And then we're looking at our facilities as a way to provide a whole array of services. And some of these services actually generate revenue for St. Hubert's and make us financially stronger. And I think this is very important to call out because despite what we have seen around many families being in distress, there is also a very interesting juxtaposition in that every year people collectively spend more money on their pets. Last year, Americans spent over $100 billion on pets. And so our question is, how could we capture a portion of what people are spending on their pets to ensure the sustainability of St. Hubert's? And we already do a pretty good job of that. We have a training center that has 118, 120 classes at a time. And people love it because not only do they get access to wonderful trainers, but they know the money they're paying, they would have paid anywhere, is actually being invested philanthropically to help homeless animals. We also have a pet supply store, which people go in at the time of adoption to get all the supplies that they need to bring their pets home. And we have a doggy daycare center, which is a vibrant, fun place that people rely on for care of their pet. And right now we have an 80 dog waiting list. And so we're going to be opening up our North Branch facility to serve as our second daycare center so that more people in that community have a care option for their dogs. And then if you've been to St. Hubert's in the last couple of weeks, you'll see that there's a big construction project underway. And we're really excited because we're going to be partnering with a veterinary partner who is building out our site to open a private veterinary practice. So there'll be more veterinarians in our community, and their practice will have both a primary care and a specialty care component. And it's going to be, if you're facing the building, on the left-hand side of the St. Hubert's facility. And they're going to be developing our facility. They're going to be paying us rent. They're going to be sharing a percentage of the profits with us. And they'll be giving comp vet care to some of our most vulnerable animals. And so that is a partnership that extends more veterinary care in the community, but also will make St. Hubert's financially stronger. So to sum it up, here is the model. We put animals, people, and community at the center. We focus on diversifying our revenue. We focus on fundraising to people that love and care about animals and communities, people in communities as well as animals. We have a new place-based strategy. We're using technology and data in a more intelligent, focused way. We're building relationships with human healthcare providers, and all of this is going to create stronger communities. So I know that was a lot, and I'm going to stop now because the floor is yours. And I hope that you have some questions for us. And Bobby and I are we're gonna play a little pickleball here and toss the questions back and forth. So Bobby, do we have any questions?
Lisa, thank you so much. I mean, I know that was so much information, folks. And I think for me, the takeaway that I get from it is that, there's so much volume of work going on, but I like to really slow down and think about every single interaction with every single animal and family that we're having. When we're talking about those return to owners, every single one of those are a beautiful reunion of a family coming together. When we talk about those transports, every one of those is an individual animal getting a new opportunity at a positive outcome. When we talk about all of those adoptions, that's us bringing an individual new family into the St. Hubert's community. So even though I've seen that many times, Lisa, it still gives me goosebumps every single time. And the other thing I really want to appreciate are the folks that are on this call are so in line with you. So the conversations and questions that are being had in our Q&A, one, are very aligned with what you talked about, but even amplify those conversations. So I know that you touched on it very quickly about North Branch, but there is a conversation about Branchburg facility and the use of it. So maybe just to make sure the person heard it, could you remind us again what we will be doing there?
Yes. So any of you who know Pam Fife, who has been at that facility for many years, who calls it home and has been our fearless leader there, she will be leading the opening of a doggy daycare center there. And it's really a perfect place to do doggy daycare because it's got the outdoor facilities. It's going to take very little change to the facility itself. And as I mentioned, we have 80 dogs on our waiting list. And so this will help us extend the care that we're able to provide dog owners who want a safe place for their animals to be during the day.
I love that, Lisa. Another question that had come up, I know you touched on it about the impact that we are making to young neonatal kittens and the work that was done in 2022. But what are the plans going into 2023 for our NICU program?
So, one of the things that is most vexing to us is that we are not able to do trap, neuter, return in New Jersey, and that leaves a lot of kittens and cats vulnerable. Many organizations who have been able to do TNR have seen a much lower impact, a much lower intake, and so at the advocacy level, we're actually working with partners on a bill right now in front of the New Jersey legislature to make TNR more accessible. But until that happens, we need a place for the most vulnerable kittens to come, and so we have reached out to all of our partner shelters around us in New Jersey to make sure that they know that if kittens come in that are too much for them to care for, or they don't have a foster home, that we have a NICU and a group of professionals and volunteers who are there for those kittens. And, with a 99% save rate, that's a big burden to take off our shelter partners so they can focus on other animals.
Absolutely, Lisa. With really this shift into capacity building and supporting the state of New Jersey, I see such opportunity there. And speaking of partnerships, right? We don't just have shelters in New Jersey, but there's also a lot of rescue partners in New Jersey.
Yes.
So can you touch on how St. Hubert's plans to work with rescue partners in this upcoming year?
Yes. So, rescues are wonderful because many of them are foster based and they have very dedicated followings. What they don't often have is medical capacity. And so we have a wonderful facility, Noah's Ark, that we're going to be converting into a medical service provider that's going to provide an outlet for those rescue organizations who are having to scramble to access veterinary care. So we're actually hoping to make those rescues stronger and more capable and fulfill a need. And, maybe they can help us with some of their foster homes. I have great respect for rescues, and I think together we're stronger. And so opening up that facility to support them is a way to give something back because they give to us as well.
I love that. And I think just the lens that we take about we're constantly learning and partnership is about collaboration is such a critical part of our future. And so I did want to take a moment to talk about, we have two last questions that we'd love to pose to you, and we'll get everybody out on time because your time is so valuable. But Lisa, with the merger between HRA and St. Hubert's, I have personally learned so much from the dedicated staff at St. Hubert's about animal welfare and the way that the work is happening. Could you share something with me in this group about what you have learned through this merger and something that St. Hubert's has taught you about animal welfare?
Well, I actually did one of the first animal transports at Monadnock Humane Society in New Hampshire in 2001, not to date myself, but, I thought I knew a lot about transport. And I'll tell you, the first day that I had on a St. Hubert shirt and went to the airport and did transport, I just saw a transport ninja process that was like nothing I had ever seen. I can tell you, to all of you who give money to support our transport way station program, you are investing in the best professionals in this business. They do an amazing job. And I want to invite anybody on this call who would like to see a transport to get in touch with us and come to the Morristown Airport and not take my word for it, but just see this team, because they look every animal in the eye. They welcome every animal to New Jersey. They lovingly take them out and they get them quickly to wherever they need to be. It is magic. It is magic.
I love that, Lisa. Look, we had one other quick question that popped in that I want to make sure that we don't miss, because it's really about our people. And I know that people are so important to you, and I'm happy to help with this as well. What are we doing to help increase employee retention? And also I'll add to that recruitment and getting the staff we need to support the animals.
Well, we've raised salaries, so that's a big help. We are offering more training. We're offering cross training so that people begin to see that they're not just doing a job for St. Hubert's, but that they have a career path. Most folks want to stay in New Jersey, but if for some reason their career takes them elsewhere, we also have our partner Humane Rescue Alliance in DC, where people have job opportunities. But it's really, we're listening a lot to the people who are closest to the work. They know more than I do about what the community solutions are. They know more than Bobby does about how we should extend adoptions or offer more medical support or bring in more volunteers. So a lot of it is about making sure we're listening to the voices and uplifting the voices of the people on the ground. And Bobby, you support a lot of these folks. I don't know if you have anything you'd like to add to that.
You know, Lisa, I couldn't have said it better myself. Really, I think we're really taking an approach of, as we are reimagining 2023 and really focusing on strategy building. Tiffany, our executive director, has built some amazing working groups with the staff, so they are a part of the discussions of what the strategy looks like. We're really getting into the weeds on what the training looks like, because in order for people to love their job, they need to know how we define success, and we need to support them in being successful. So I think having goals and having quarterly metrics and having professional development opportunities, we're one of the only organizations I know in the country that actually shuts down at a certain time to provide professional development for their entire staff. So it's really to be a place of learning, and not just for our staff, but for us as leadership. So I appreciate that. And Lisa, in closing, I think this is a wonderful question, and I'm going to close out myself and toss to you to answer this and send us into our evening. So from me, such a great opportunity to be a part of this. I'm so grateful for the folks that are on this call. But the last question we're posing is, if people are inspired, if people are leaving this motivated, and they want to get more involved with St. Hubert's, how can they do that?
Everybody who has that feeling, I want you at the St. Hubert's table. We all want you beside us, deeply involved. As I mentioned to you, I started as a volunteer. I did volunteering and fostering before I ever worked for an animal welfare organization. And I know how meaningful that can be. So if you want to stuff envelopes, walk dogs, cuddle kittens, whatever you want to do, reach out and let us know. We'll put you in the same training that we're giving to our employees so that you can learn alongside of them. If you have any kind of supplies, don't throw out those old sheets or those old towels. We have a place for them, welcoming and warming our animals. If you would like to give us money or financial support, we can give you our word that we've got one of the best teams that we've ever seen that can put your money to good use. And I think maybe the most important thing in closing is that you are members of the community. You are eyes and ears. You care deeply about this organization. Many of you have cared about this organization for decades. So call us if you have an idea for how we can do better. If you hear something that concerns you, if you have a question, don't wonder about it. Pick up the phone. Just reach out to us. We'd love to hear from you. We need your help.
Awesome. And on that, I just want to thank all of you. Lisa, I want to thank you for the opportunity to share this information with everyone. Again, please reach out. This presentation will be emailed to all of you tomorrow, but it will also be available on the St. Hubert's YouTube. If you are motivated or excited about this, please share this with your friends, your colleagues, other volunteers, because the more that we can spread this message, the more that we can do. And cheers to 2023. And we look forward to seeing you all again very soon. Have a good evening.
Thank you.